Thank you once again for availing your time to join us during the Startup Huddle, titled Assisting Female Entrepreneurs Run Successful and Sustainable Businesses. My name is Tisetso Lephoto. I'm the Ecosystem Enabler at On SLOANE, and with me is my colleague, Thembiso Magajana.
Thank you, Mashati. Hi guys. My name is Thembiso Magajana, Programs Officer at On SLOANE. I would like to say thank you for everyone for availing their time, and a special thanks to our panelists who will be sharing their journeys with us today. I'm looking forward to hearing your inspiring stories, and glad to have you guys. Back to you, Mashati.
Before we start, please note that the chat function is enabled, so anyone can send their comments there. And if you have any questions, please also ask them on the Q&A section. So, Startup Huddle offers a unique program designed to educate, engage, and connect with entrepreneurs. It is important because it serves as a safe space for all entrepreneurs to share and identify their challenges that block their progress. And this way they will find new opportunities and take advantage of them. The Startup Huddle aims to unpack key considerations critical to future trends, how and where to invest future non-financial and financial resources during unprecedented times, and how women can leverage opportunities to build and sustain their businesses. Without further ado, please let me introduce our panelists, Dr. Tisetso Lephoto, Nokwazi Mzobe, and Thembiso Magajana. Thembiso, can you please do us a pleasure and introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your business?
Wow, good afternoon to everyone. Sure, I hate being the first person because it puts so much pressure to say something profound. But I think for those that don't know me and the work that I do, my name is Thembiso Magajana, and I am the co-founder of a nonprofit company called Social Coding. And the trajectory of Social Coding is very exciting because we started out being an organization that was equipping young girls with coding skills. And over the years, we've morphed into something which I believe is a lot more sustainable and impactful, with our focus being giving digital toolkits to rural communities and helping them leverage those tools for a better future and a better income. So we do everything from digital training, which compromises of computer familiarization, as well as coding, AI, and blockchain skills. But for us, what's really important is equaling the playing field between young people who come from rural communities and those in semi-urban areas. So our focus is really about empowering them and providing them with the opportunity to excel in technology.
Thank you. Nokwazi, please introduce yourself and what your business does.
So, wow, Thembiso, first of all, I was glad it wasn't me coming first, but I love what you do. I'm so excited to be on this panel with you. So what I do is that I run a social enterprise, and I have been working with startups since 2013. So I partner with organizations, and we provide skills to aspiring business owners, startups, people at growth stage, to really give them the right skills to help them start up their businesses and grow their businesses. The one thing I can say is that, for me, this is quite profound being on this platform, because my business started because of women. I volunteered on a program that was supporting women and supporting female SMEs in South Africa. And I volunteered on that program, and literally that's how I started my business, because the woman said, how can we continue working with you? And I had no choice but to actually formalize and start a business. So it's an absolute pleasure and to meet you and to meet everybody who's on this platform.
Thank you, Nokwazi. Dr. Tisetso Lephoto, please introduce yourself and just tell us a bit about your business.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much for granting me the opportunity to be part of this panel. It's a great honor, and it's a pleasure to also meet such wonderful and powerful women in the panel as well. I must say thanks so much also, Mahlatsi, for the invitation. So I am Dr. Tisetso Lephoto. I'm the founder and CEO of Nematech. Nematech is a company that it's providing holistic agricultural services to farmers. We incorporated last year, but Nematech has been in existence since 2011, whereby we looked at finding alternative ways of controlling problematic insect pests in agricultural industries. So we have identified what we call entomopathogenic nematodes. Those are insect-killing microscopic worms which are able to infect and kill insects within 24 to 48 hours upon invasion. So we identified these small organisms which we can package and use to control problem pests in farms. And I'm sure we are all aware that the use of synthetic chemical pesticides in agricultural industries has a lot of bad and harmful implications, especially towards human health and the environment. So as Nematech, we are bringing eco-friendly, organic, and natural products to control problem pests in farms. And we aimed at also focusing at young and emerging farm owners. We are also aiming to take our products to other countries globally. And so far, as Nematech, we were one of the top 16 entrepreneurs globally to top 16 companies globally to innovate something that's going to actually impact the society and the environment. So this is an honor for me to be here. And I must say that it was actually worth it to also invest in my academics, because currently I'm pursuing my MBA with Henley Business School. And I completed my PhD at the age of 26 in 2015. But that didn't stop me to venture into bringing the scientific ideas that we have into the market. So thank you so much.
Thank you for intros. I hope our attendees got a broad view of your businesses, and it was informative on my side. I have a question for you, Nokwazi. Before you started your own consulting agency, I understand you had gained a wide range of experience in markets across the Middle East and Africa in areas of logistics, market planning, and finance. I'm very sure that you can foresee the trends in the ecosystem and opportunities that women should take. Can you please share with us some of these trends that the women can explore, and can you also share with us some of the opportunities that women can pursue?
So yes, Muzi. So, for me, my first 8 years were working with two multinationals. So one which was in fast moving consumer goods, and the other one was in telco, so, and mobile phones. And so I guess, the beauty about working with multinationals is that you get exposed to basically what's happening in the rest of the world. And, for me, what was quite interesting is that, what I saw being in those spaces is that, in business, women were largely underrepresented. And this is a discussion I even had with a friend of mine who's still in corporate today, where she was asking me, so Nokwazi, having run your business for 7 years, where are you seeing women mostly starting their businesses? And, it was interesting because a commentator wrote and they're like, they tend to be in more motherly industries. So, coaching and HR and softer skills services, which are really important. But we see less women, I'm sure Thembiso will be able to touch on that, and even Tisetso, in industries that are going to fundamentally change the world and change our continent at large. So industries like technology, we need more female coders. We need more female data analysts. you know, and in fact, I mean, even touch on data analysts, is that we really see things from a different lens as females, and we filter the world very differently from the way men do. And so by having more female data analysts would just have a whole lot more impact in terms of how organizations look at data and utilize data in terms of how they create services and products. You know, in farming as well, we really need more female farmers, just in terms of, you know, how females, in terms of how we tend to share more, and we tend to be more community focused than profit focused, you know. And as we know that the world, impact investing is really growing, and the need to focus on the triple P. And, you know, what I've seen is that women will tend to think more about the social and the environmental impacts. And, you know, and so for me, that's why it's really important that women also step into industries like manufacturing. Because I think we need more female manufacturers, because I feel, again, with the lens that we bring as females, we'll probably look at more factors of how can we make a manufacturing environment or even a mining environment more friendly to women and female employees, so that they can enter that space, so that they can stay in those industries that have previously not been friendly to women. And so for me, I think really that's really important, is that, you know, female need to be stepping into manufacturing, technology. I can't even continue to touch that on that. And then lastly, I mean, we already know that in terms of Africa, from just an agricultural perspective, right, the number of people who are going hungry in terms of food security, it's just, you know, astronomical. But the amount of arable land that we have available for farming shows that there's an opportunity for women to step into farming and to really transform our continent, and to also transform the agricultural industry.
Thank you, Nokwazi, for insightful words of advice. Thank you so much. My next question that I'm going to pose now is for you, Thembiso, sorry. So the fourth industrial revolution is a tech utopia vision that neglects the realities for those living in the rural areas. Most schools in these communities do not have access to technology, thus leading most females having less opportunities. Do you find that it is more difficult to encourage young girls to explore the world of technology in rural areas compared to those ones in urban areas?
Yeah, okay. Thanks so much. That's actually such a fantastic question. And I think before I tackle the question directly, let me bring like an indirect element to it, because what I've seen in the work that I've done in the last 5 years, specifically in rural communities, is that it's not so much about tackling whether or not girls are interested in technology, but more the underlying issues of unconscious biases, right, that many females face from a very young age. So when we go into these communities, it's not just about teaching coding. And I think the first word you used was fourth industrial revolution, which is a terminology I can't stand, right? Because I don't think people look at it from all facets. So when we go into these communities, it's not about giving them coding skills in order for them to become the next Google or Facebook or Amazon. Because what we've seen in these communities is that it's less about the digital skills and more about the opportunity that it brings, right? So when we talk to our girls, we look at it from a holistic approach. How do we develop them not only to be future technologists, but to be well-rounded leaders, right? And it starts with tackling issues of unconscious bias. What do I mean by unconscious bias? One of the things that I've seen with my young girls when we're teaching lessons is when they know an answer and they put their hand up, a lot of the boys in the class will be, oh, teacher's pet, oh, Miss Know-it-all, right? And then subconsciously, our girls stop putting their hands up. So if we have a coding algorithm on the board that they know the answer to, and we ask them about it and they don't answer, it's because they're afraid of being labeled a know-it-all or being labeled a teacher's pet, right? And that provides obstacles for us in rural communities because the bias, the sexism, all of that is a lot more intense in these rural communities than it is in semi-urban or urban communities. So we try to tackle that first, right? We try to show the girls that being a leader sometimes means you won't be likable, right? Because what we've seen is when they stop putting their hands up, this begins to manifest later on. They don't put their hands up for opportunities. And this is a problem that we have even as female leaders as we grow, right? Because for some reason, when we look at leadership, especially in the technology industry, right, it's tied to masculinity. So leadership is in a sense very masculine. So when a man is considered a good leader, it's because he's decisive, it's because he is strong-willed and ambitious. Whereas if you take those same behavioral traits and apply it to a woman is considered self-serving, a woman is considered selfish, a woman is considered only out for herself, right? So we're trying to instill in young girls to get rid of that unconscious bias, which lies as part of the obstacle in training them for technology. And once we do that, we've seen that they are able to perform at an even higher level than girls from urban communities. But it all starts with us ensuring that we tackle unconscious bias. We cannot start by teaching digital skills if we don't start with the foundation, right? And the foundation after unconscious bias is the simple basics of computer familiarization. When people speak to me, they say, oh, Thembi, we love that you're teaching coding. We love that you're teaching robotics. But what they don't understand is that that's just a byproduct of what our training and our program is all about. For us, it's about giving these young girls confidence, right? To be able to switch a computer on. Because when we started out 5 years ago and we were so zealous about teaching coding, what we forgot is that we were approaching these communities from a point of our want and not their need, right? We battled for months with the girls because we didn't understand that they're not interested about coding. You know, for them, the fourth industrial revolution is a far away thing. They're not very much concerned about that. What they're concerned about right now is, can I send an email? Can I Google? Can I draft in an Excel spreadsheet? And once we took away this pressure to create the next Silicon Valley in these rural communities, we began to meet these young girls at their need. And their need was computer familiarization. And after that, we tackled now the coding and we brought in the robotics and we began to see them excel. And how we were able to measure this is last year, we had a group of our girls perform at the ESCOM Expo, and they outdid a number of urban girls from high schools, from Model C schools in the city. Our girls came first place and outdid. So it does show that even though the challenges and the obstacles in rural communities is greater, when we begin to attack something from a foundational aspect and not just from a 4IR perspective, we really then begin to equal the playing field for both spectrums.
Thank you, Thembiso. And I think I can speak for most of us young ladies that in high school and primary school, when you who are focused in your school academics and your ambitions, everyone tries to put you down and calls you a goody two-shoe. So I can really understand. And it is difficult as a young lady because there's a lot of pressures, peer pressure from school, pressure from family. So it does take a lot of commitment to get where you are right now. And this also now leads to my question to Dr. Tisetso, that even though young girls study STEM subjects in high school, we realize that as post-tertiary, there's less females in the field, and you have managed to obtain your PhD at the age of 26. So please explain to us like your journey from high school, considering all these challenges, and having the fact that you come from a township. How did you obtain it, and how did you manage to get into the biotech sector? Because we all know that it's a male-dominated field, you know. So how did you do it?
Yes, thank you so much, Matlazi. Indeed, yes, I'm born and raised in Soweto. I grew up in Midlands, and I attended both my primary school and high school in Meadowlands and Dobsonville. So it was not easy indeed, especially as a young person who had big dreams. But I think it's important for me to share the power of imagination. So I was very passionate about science from an early age. In fact, I do get some stories as well from my mom and dad about my passion for science. I'm told that when I was 5 years old, I literally asked my parents to buy me seeds because I wanted to have my own vegetable garden at home. And indeed, they supported that vision and bought me the seeds. I had my vegetable garden since I was 5 years old. And I also had chickens at home. So my vision and passion for agriculture has always been supported and nurtured. I attended primary at Thagisa Primary School, and we had a lot of challenges because you can imagine going to schools with little or no resources for teaching and learning. It was challenging. I mean, for me to even dream about studying genetics, it was actually a blessing because you can imagine I had to literally depend solely on the power of imagination. Imagine learning about cells and DNA and you don't have a microscope at school. So I literally depended on the power of imagination. And then we didn't even use a lot of technology. We didn't have computers. I could say maybe now I could have maybe went onto the internet and used it as a tool as well, but we didn't have any of that. We solely depended on using books and imagination. So I was very passionate about genetics. That's where my passion also started, and as well as agriculture. And when I got to high school, I literally shared my story with my teachers, and they encouraged me strongly to forget about the challenges that we have in the school, but to pursue my passion and actually attend university.
Just a sec.
So I ended up applying for studying at Wits, and I was accepted, seeing that I was one of the top learners in Soweto in 2006. To matriculate with distinctions. So I was greatly accepted at Wits, but still when I got to Wits, I had challenges. I didn't have any sponsors because the sponsors that I had were pushing me into studying commercial subjects, but I had to be bold and reject those sponsors, which actually in a way were aiming to deviate me from studying science. But I took a bold step and I went to study even without financial support. I would like to still encourage more young women to join the field and not to be afraid of the challenges, because here I am, I've done it. I'm a multi-award winning scientist. I've won numerous awards internationally. I've got awards from America, I've got awards from Dubai and Saudi Arabia. So nothing is impossible. Literally, we can achieve anything that we want to achieve. Besides the awards, I've managed to also encourage a lot of young women to be in the field. As we speak, we've partnered with an organization that's called Go Mets. Go Mets aims to encourage young women and also young men to venture into science and to not be afraid of mathematics, because as we all know, South Africa is one of the countries that's battling and struggling with mathematics. But through Go Mets, we've also managed to go into rural areas and share the knowledge and teach young people about science and technology. We also literally have computers that we have purchased for young people to now start coding. So it's exciting that in our panel we have someone who's very passionate about coding. I also teach coding. I've done coding also in my PhD. So we've done that a lot to show young people that indeed it's possible. I mean, if I can do it, coming from the dusty streets of Meadowlands, I truly believe that anyone else can do it. It also takes support and great passion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tisetso. It was very insightful and motivational. Thembiso, so looking at rural and township development, What are some of the challenges or stereotypes you had to debunk while running this initiative, social coding? And what are some of the future trends that you see in your space?
Yeah, so I think you're going to hear me speak a lot about unconscious bias, because it's something that I feel is stalling the gender progress, right, of women, especially in our field. I think a good example that I'll give is right before we went into lockdown, I attended a technology event, which was predominantly attended by, you know, white males. And some of these white males are actually doing some work in rural communities. So I was very excited to get this invite, and I thought, you know, I'm going to learn so much. And I go to this event, and there's a huddle of men sitting in the corner and, you know, just talking. And I walk up to them, and I realized that they all stopped talking when I went up to them. And so I said to myself, I'm like, okay, let me just say hi. And I said to the gentleman on my right, I said, hi, my name is Thembi. What's your name and what do you do? And this man looks at me and he says, oh, my name is X and I'm in fintech. So, you know, naturally, I'm a very curious person and I like to ask questions. So I said, oh, fintech, that's great. Tell me more. And this man looks at me and he says, oh, you won't get it. You know, you won't understand. And for me, I couldn't comprehend why he would say that. Is it because I'm female? A woman won't understand what fintech is, right? And that for me began this process of acknowledging that one of the reasons why women, particularly in my industry, fail to move up is because there's a system set up against us because we're female, right? And that's been a huge challenge in my career. The fact that I'm female comes first before the fact that I'm a businesswoman, or for the fact that I'm a founder of this great organization. And in learning that, it's something that I've brought back into the work that I do in rural communities, to say to my girls that, you know, you are going to find a lot of oppression. You are going to find a lot of challenges. I see it every day just by being a female founder. But it's not about what you do or how you respond to those challenges. It's more about how your mindset shifts, right? So when we speak about future trends, we shouldn't put this pressure on ourselves to always be ahead of the curve or to always prove that as a woman we can do just as good or even better than our male counterparts. It's about understanding what is the need, right? And that is what I try to focus on. I focus less on the fact that I am a female social entrepreneur, and I focus more on the social aspect on it. So for me, when I look at future trends, I don't look at whether or not robots are going to take our jobs, or if blockchain is the new language that everyone should speak. I look at what is the current socioeconomic environment and how do I address the need of that environment, right? So when we look at the work that we do at social coding, we see that in most industries of these rural communities, it's either agriculture or small businesses, right? So I know for one, that me teaching small scale farmers in Lephalale, for example, how to code, it's useless to them, even though stats are showing that coding is the new digital language, right? For me, in the work that I do, that has nothing. It means nothing to them. Coding for small scale farmers means nothing to them. So now my trend and my focus needs to be what skill, what tool can I equip them with that will help them increase their production, right? And that should be our focus when we're looking at future trends. What is the tool that I need to give my customers, no matter what industry it is, be it nonprofit, be it business? You have to look at what tool can I give my clients, my target audience, my beneficiaries, right? That will help make their lives better and either increase production or increase income for them. And when we shift our minds from looking at it of a perspective of trends and focusing more on needs, we are less likely to put this pressure on ourselves. right? So that's really, really important for me and for the work that I do. So it's better that I introduce a small scale farmer in a rural community to an app that will help track their produce, right? Than it is for me to teach them how to code, for me to teach them how to build a website. It's really important that we don't get caught up in these terms, you know, they call them hype terms. Fourth industrial revolution, trends, what is Google doing now? What is Amazon doing now? It's important that we focus on the socio-economic environment and ensure that we're addressing the needs that need to be met right now.
Thank you, Thembi. I agree with you 100%. We have to focus on the immediate right now, which is what do we need? So I totally agree with you. Just a few words for our attendees. We will take the questions in the last 10 minutes of the webinar, so just bear with us for a moment. Back to you, Nokwazi. How are you ensuring that your business remains sustainable in these unprecedented times, as we have been struck with the surprise of COVID-19? How are you ensuring that your business is still sustainable and you're keeping the wheels rolling?
Okay, so I think for me, what's quite important is that the values of my business were always quite clear before even COVID-19 happened. And so basically, my business model has always been about collaboration and partnerships. Secondly, my business model, because I am largely in consulting and do a lot of project-based work, I never had the ego of when people said, how many people do you employ? And say, no, I have 20, 30, 40. Because for me, what was always key was about sustainability. So the one thing I've always been very clear about, I always say to people, I believe in paying my team well versus having a huge team that when times are hard, I cannot afford to keep them on. And so the reason why I'm giving this context is that I've largely worked with freelancers, but I have viewed freelancers as part of my team. So the freelancers that I've worked with have been working with me for the last 5 years, but either under their own businesses or as independent contractors. And so how that has helped me is that as you know, COVID-19 hit, and initially what happened, and just to give my context, is that literally most of my projects froze. So you need to understand that when you work a lot with corporates, the first thing that they will look at is that how can they do cost savings? And they would probably look at putting projects that are run by external providers and maybe not central to their organizations on hold. And so for me, I got impacted by that. So, but what helped was that because I didn't have a full-time team, I didn't have that direct impact. The second thing that I was able to do is that already, I think, touching on what Thembiso was saying, is that we always think of technology, of, you know, having all these huge things. For me, I've always worked on what tech-enabled apps devices and apps can I use in my business. So already I had the fundamentals there. You know, I use a project management system like Trello. I already had Zoom. I, already was on Sage and so many other platforms, and my team was on that as well. So it wasn't a huge learning curve to shift from face to face. So for me, what was interesting is that literally the week lockdown happened, one of my clients came back and said, hey, Nokwazi, guess what? So we had all this training planned face-to-face, and we need to have it online. Can you do it online? And I was able to, because I already knew how to facilitate online. And so for me, I would say that's where I have been lucky, is that my business model was largely because of that. And then if I go back to the collaboration, my work has started picking up again, because a lot of organizations are saying to themselves, who can we work with who already has a collaboration mindset and a partnership mindset? And so the work that's picked up for me in the last 6 weeks has largely been about that. where I have been joining teams of different organizations and even joining panels like this, you know, giving insight from a more collaborative experience versus coming from a point of what am I going to make immediately today? And I think for me, you know, this is the business model of the future. It's not about working in silos. It's about how can I work with different organizations in order to achieve what needs to be achieved. And so that's how I've managed to survive. And also, I think for me, it's going to be how I'll also continue to grow, because the opportunities that are now coming to me really fit well with the business model I already had operating.
Thank you, Nokwazi. So next question is for you, Dr. Tisetso. So we understand that you've accomplished a lot at the age of 26 years. You've achieved great milestones. This is something that we can't look down upon. We celebrate you. And for a young girl who's sitting at home right now, who's asking herself, can I also one day be like you? What are some of the key challenges that you've experienced, and how did you tackle them?
Thank you so much. So yeah, it hasn't been an easy journey. I mean, having to literally move from academia, I'm still in academia, but to also transition into entrepreneurship, it was not an easy journey. First of all, you don't know where to start. You don't know who to talk to. You've got a brilliant idea, but literally you don't know where to start. But I must say that the Department of Science and Technology has provided a great number of opportunities for young people who want to take their research ideas into the market. And the Innovation Hub as well has opened a lot of doors for young people like ourselves. Challenges were the first one, yes, not knowing where to go. So it's important to, like Nokwazi was saying, to collaborate and partner with people, because you literally can learn a lot from one another. And there's a lot of programs that I'm seeing also on the internet that encourage young women to come and learn about entrepreneurship. One of my challenges was lack of funding. You start a business. I literally had to start my business with my own funds. I almost exhausted my personal savings because I wanted to see Nematech kick off so badly. So I purchased a lot of equipment from my own funding. I had to also pay my employees using my own money. It's not easy, because one would say, why don't you just apply for funding and get support? But as an entrepreneur, we need to also know that it's not about always receiving funding, because there are so many misconceptions about being an entrepreneur. Some people believe in just getting money from other sources, but sometimes you actually have to start from scratch and fundraise the funds yourselves. So I've done that. I had a lot of challenges. There were times where I didn't even have enough cash to pay my staff members, but it's through hard work. It's through making sure that we diversify our savings offerings, because when we started as Nematech, we were aiming just only to sell the biopesticide products, but also there are many challenges that come with selling that product, because it needs to be certified, it needs to be tested, it needs to be registered, it needs to be certified by government regulators. So that's a long process. But because of learning about that process, I had an opportunity to interact with many other young women who have businesses. I have friends who own pharmaceutical companies. I have friends who literally own cosmetics companies. And that actually helped to tap into the network and to collaborate with others. It helped me to actually gain more insights into how to run my business. So the financial challenges then were no longer challenges, because as now I've learned how to fundraise for my own company. Even before selling the product, I've learned how to diversify my savings offerings. We've done a lot of work also with the COVID-19, whereby we supported a lot of people in the townships and in the rural areas to make sure that we give them masks and we provide sanitizers. So that's one of the diversifications that we had to incorporate as Nematech. So the challenges will also be there, because many times when I went for my pitching, I would be asked about my strategy to market entry. So there's a lot of languages that are also, and nomenclatures also used in the entrepreneurship space. And if one is not actually well equipped with those, that can also be a challenge.
So guys, we'll take just a couple of questions from the attendees. There's one question directed at Thembi. So from Bernice Dixon. Her question is, how do you overcome language barriers in communities with regards to coding?
Cool. That's a very, very good question, Denise. So the ethos of our organization is that whenever we go into communities, that we select our support staff from the community themselves. Because what we've seen is that, you know, who better knows that community than the people that live in them? So we try to go into communities at least 3 to 4 months before we begin the actual training to do recruitment amongst the young people that live in those communities. So we usually give them foundational skills. We teach them how to facilitate. And when we start running the programs, they are the ones that actually do the training. And then we are just support staff. So the nice thing about it is that we rarely run our workshops in English, you know? We always have and speak the language of that community. So if we're in Limpopo, then we have a facilitator that is teaching in Pedi, because the last thing we want our girls to grow up thinking is that a high level of English means you have a high intellect, right? And it's our duty actually to ensure that technology is accessible to everyone. And accessibility starts with language. That's why I love your question. It starts with things like that. Another thing that we try to do is we try to steer away from too much theoretical work, right? Because what we've picked up in our research is that in rural communities, people learn better practically than they do theoretically. I'll give you a very good example of this. When we were younger, our parents would come home to find that we have taken the TV remote apart, correct? Or we've taken our toys apart because we want to see what's happening on the inside. It's the same learning process for children in rural communities. I mean, I'm sure a lot of us have seen young boys who've made metal cars out of steel, or fans, or makeshift soccer balls. It's the same with the girls as well. People in rural communities tend to learn better practically. So that's what we try to do. We try to make our workshops and our trainings as practical as can be. And not only for the young learners that we engage in our Junior Pioneers program, but even for the young people who are either small scale farmers or who run their own small businesses. We try to ensure that, one, we're teaching in the local language, right? That even the material that we hand out is in the local language. And secondly, that we are doing as much hands-on practical work as can be.
Thank you, Thembi. I hope that answers your question. One more closing question before you leave us, Thembi. What more do you think as individuals in the startup ecosystem we need to do to ensure that there's equal access to resources for everyone?
Okay, first of all, let's look at what your recruitment processes look like, right? Especially, I have beef with incubators. And my beef with incubators stems from the perspective of, you guys look at your immediate radius, right? Which is cool, logistics, I understand. But everything that we need to do in order to meet our goals, not only as a country, but a continent, starts with intentionality. How intentional are you in your meetings about reaching people that are outside your radius, right? Where does that start from? The people that work for you. How many of the people that work in these incubators that are project team leads, that are social media brand, whatever, how many of them actually come from rural communities, right? And when I say rural communities, I don't mean Soweto. I don't mean Mamelodi. I don't mean Thembisa. I'm talking about Marapong, Steenbokpan. How intentional are you about looking for talent that comes from a village to sit in on these meetings, to help you strategize, right? If you don't start within your own organizations, please don't bother us and come to organizations outside of that. Because honestly, everything starts with you. So that's number one. What does your intentionality look like, right? Number two, we need to debunk this thing, especially when it comes to Black people, especially when it comes to Black women, that in order for you to be successful at something, you have to be extremely good at it, right? We'll start with computer sciences. There's this narrative that girls that are in computer sciences are the really smart ones, right? Oh, there's only two females in their class. They must be really smart. No, you could find that systematically it's like that because more boys are chosen. There are lots of smart women that I've seen that don't get into computer sciences at school, right? So the minute we debunk this thing that in order to be successful, you need to be extremely smart or have this IQ, you begin to level out the playing field, right? Thirdly, and which is actually one of the most important thing, what does funding look like? Are we putting money? Are we backing people from rural communities, right? I know ideation, a lot of people are attracted by these shiny ideas, these ideas that are pitched in perfect English. Forget all of that, right? Is someone from a rural community able to prove their proof of concept? And if so, why aren't you giving them the money? You don't need to start with millions. Funding is not just, hard cash. It's time, it's mentoring. How are we as ecosystem builders in towns, in these urban areas, mentoring people from rural communities? How are we investing in them from a time perspective, from a money and HR perspective? How are we ensuring that we take them from level A to level B? And it all goes back to my first statement, which is it starts with intentionality. Talk to the people on the ground, get their views, understand what their needs are, and meet them at the point of their need.
Thank you, Thembi. And just to say something on behalf of our team at 22 on Sloan, we don't want beef with you at all.
You don't want the smoke. You don't want the smoke. But yeah.
Thank you so much. I've noted everything you just said right now, and we will follow through your books. You know what I mean? So thank you so much. Back to you, Mahlatsi.
And Nokwazi, there's one question for you as well. So it's from Lebu. She says, my company is about to move from ideation into being a startup. Very excited. We have a tech solution platform that's going to help in the working integrated learning side of training for bursary and SETA incentivized learners. We have just partnered with one of the biggest training institutions in SA to pilot this app, and we will after pitch it to the government together with this institution. The patient is out, but it's still a provincial patient. Okay.
Patent.
Yeah, patent, yes, patent. So I think, she just ended it there. So I'm assuming that maybe she just needs guidance in how to pitch and what's expected in such an environment. So I think,
So, I was looking at this question and it's quite complicated. So I think the first thing that you need to look at is what is your business model? So I'm glad that you're going to be piloting with this organization. But, part of your pilot, you've got to say to yourself, what are the outcomes that we're looking for this pilot? And how is it going to help us achieve these outcomes and also to potentially make money? Because I tend to see with, people who move from ideation to startup is that they have a great service or product, but they haven't really thought through the monetization process, which is their business model. So my question is, and not just one business model, but what are the potential revenue streams that you can get from that? Then the second thing that I'm going to say to you is, really interrogate why government. And for me, that's really important because, the sales cycle with government is really long. And also there are all these, I would say, compliance processes that you have to be able to go through in terms of tendering and. So I've met a lot of, I'd say, innovators who've created great stuff and said, no, we want to target government, you know, and my question is, why government? Can you not potentially partner with more private institutions in order to get this app and get it moving more into the institutions that you need to get it into? And mainly not because I'm saying I'm anti-government, it's more about the process with government is quite long and it's also quite risky. And so I would say then the third part in terms of your pitch is to do the research. So do the research and really understand what are they looking for and how much are they willing to pay for this, right? But also the research around, you know, protecting your IP, even though you have a patent, right? You need to find a way to protect your IP and have confidentiality agreements in place. So these are sort of the things that you also need to have in place to protect yourself as an innovator. So for me, there's so many things to look at. So ask yourself, what is the objective of this next phase? What am I looking to get out of it? Right? And then be very clear to put the systems and processes in place that will allow you to be able to do that. And then lastly, you know, something that we don't really think of and we don't know of, actually, let me not even say think of, we don't know of, especially for those of us in the social enterprise space, is that you've got to be right now immediately thinking about, how do I measure impact? So how am I going to measure the impact of this app and how am I going to show that? The reason why I'm mentioning that is that right now, remember I mentioned that a lot more people are going into impact investments, right? And so for me, your app kind of falls into that area because it's about, you know, helping people, helping learners be able to have job placements, right? So you've got to ask yourself, what is the impact and how are we going to measure it? And it starts now. So it starts now in terms of, have we designed a monitoring and evaluation system that we are going to be able to even get that data in the pilot? Because in that way, you'll be able to then position yourself to speak to organizations that are more impact focused rather than profit focused, because they'll be more patient with you as you continue to iterate and develop and roll out your app. And I think I want to go back to the last thing about, remember, if you think about it, the seaters, they mainly get their money from who? It's from private sector. So corporates have to pay that. The SDL, the corporate pays, goes towards CETA, right? So again, I come back to you and say, why government? Why not private sector? So if you're going to the W&R CETA, right, why not speak to somebody at MassMart, somebody at Pick and Pay, and say, we've created this great app. We know that you're already spending SDL money. How can we work with you to ensure that learners can be placed properly in your organizations? Because it's going to benefit them the most, not necessarily government. We always forget, governments are not job creators. Governments, they set the policy, they set the legislation and stuff like that. The people who are going to create the jobs, the people who are funding the seaters, that money is coming from corporates. So I need you to go back, pull out your business model canvas or your social business model canvas, and really look and think through and say, okay, this is the way I'm starting off now, but is this the right direction for sustainability? And I'm happy for you to reach out to Matoyana, and she can give you my email address if you just want to chat a bit more about it and see how you can practically, you know, put some of my advice into play.
Thank you, Nokwazi. Dr. Tisetso, there's also a question for you. It's from Nompumelelo. She said, Dr. Tisetso, please share my ESD programs for entrepreneurship. I would like to start there before I jump into business. I've been reaching out, but no luck.
Okay, no, thank you so much, Nompumelelo, for your question. Definitely, there's a lot of programs. Last year, I went into a program called AWIF, the African program for women entrepreneurs. I'm also happy to share my email address in order to share those opportunities with you. You can contact Mahlatsi to get the information. There's programs also such as the Entrepreneurship World Cup. So this one is a global program, but it needs you to literally have something to offer. You need to have your product at least at prototype level, or your service at least also at prototype level or stage. There's programs that the seed, I think it's CEDA also offers programs for mentorship. Also with Nematech, I need to mention that we also offer mentorship for young people who want to enter the entrepreneurship space. It's important for us because we have acquired so much information, especially nationally and internationally. So we are open to also mentoring young people who want to venture into the entrepreneurship space, particularly also looking at technology and also looking at things that are important for bringing innovation into the agricultural space and biotechnology. So for anyone who is attending today and who needs more information about how to kickstart their business, they're welcome to contact me. As I've shared before, that as Nematech, we had faced so many challenges, but as we speak now, we are getting through them, and we are surviving because of the power of engaging with other startups, the power of engaging with other people who have experience and who have acquired a lot of knowledge.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. So we'll take one more question from the audience, and then I'll move on to my favorite question for you guys. But Nokwazi, maybe you can take this one. So it's a question from Rebecca, all the way in Sierra Leone. Thank you for joining us. So a question goes as follows. Starting up on a low budget, how can you prioritize your investments, especially when all the parts worth investing in are very important, whilst using what little you invest to create an impact and sustain the business?
So I think this is a great question because again, we always tend to think that funding is money. So I think Thembiso put it very nicely in that, you know, you've got to change your mindset in terms of how you view money. So the way you can think about it, again, is say to yourself, what do I need? So what I normally say to the entrepreneurs I work with, I say to them, you know, again, take your business model canvas, fill it up, and then say, what do I need? So under resources, I need a laptop, I need Wi-Fi, I need this, I need that, right? I need a table to work on and all of that. Then once you've looked at that, then say to yourself, okay, do I have the money to spend on this? Or is there somebody else who can help me get this? So I'll give an example. When I started off, I started with 300 Rand. Like I had gone to business school, I'd paid for everything myself. So I literally had zero in my bank account. And so my mom gave me that 300 Rand, friends and family. My brother gave me an old laptop. And then what I did is that I went in and I renewed my university alumni card at WITS. And I, you know, started going to WITS and working from the library there in order to access the internet and the Wi-Fi, and to also access the research base and the research pool, right? So ask yourself, who do I know, or which organizations do I know who have the resources that I need right now, and how can I leverage those resources? So so you've got to think about that. If you can't find that, remember that you yourself are a resource to your business, and you have a mind and you have a brain and you have expertise, right? So the other thing when I started off is that I did an exchange of service. So there was a company that needed my skills and I needed the right office space to be located in. So they were based in Hyde Park in a very nice area, and that's where the target market of my company was kind of sitting. So what we did is that for 12 months, I got an office space and I gave them 10 hours of my time per month, right? In order to pay for the office space that they were giving me. So for me, it really comes down to mindset. And for you saying that, okay, let me not look at this as cash, let me look at it as an exchange of value. And who can I do this exchange of value with? And then in that way, what you end up doing is that you're finding ways to subsidize your cost of starting up, and then you're only spending the money on things that really need money to be spent on. Like when you know that you have no other option but to have money, then you will spend the money there. And then what you can do is then speak to people. So speak to your friends, speak to your family and say, are you willing to, invest in me? Or are you willing to give me this and recognize that this is where I am right now? And in terms of resources, also don't be afraid of going to university students. University students need work experience. And, that can be an exchange of service to say, look, maybe I can't pay you as much right now, but you'll need work experience on your CV. So are you willing to give up some of your time to work with my organization in exchange of you getting some sort of work experience? So for me, it really becomes about mindset and really finding people and saying, can we exchange value? And that way you minimize your cost of starting up.
Thank you, Nokwazi. Very insightful. So in closing, I would like to ask then Dr. Tisetso and Nokwazi, who are your role models and what type of message, what motivation would you like to share with our females in our audience? And just your last closing remarks. Nokwazi, you can start.
So my first role model is my mother. My mother was a township entrepreneur. My father passed away when we were really young. And so, she had to deal with patriarchy. She had to deal with just all of these issues where people were saying that as a female, you shouldn't be running these businesses. And she was able to do that whilst looking after 5 children and putting them through school. So, I always say to myself, when I hear things, when men say this, or people say that Black women or X, Y, and Z, I ignore it because I was just like, how can I listen to this when there was a woman who ignored all of that in front of me and she managed to overcome that? So for me, the first one is my mom. The second one is that I actually work, we've been running a project, Mahlati, you know about it, where we've been empowering women from deep splits who run informal and micro ECDs. And if anybody knows that community, is that, it's an impoverished community, unemployment is very high and crime is very high. But these 22 women have showed me what the true spirit of entrepreneurship is that they have not received any money from government. And they all found a way to start up their creches, which is with as little money as possible. And they found a way to grow, they found a way to innovate and get resources. And so for me, those women who have access to pretty much nothing have been able to start businesses that have been sustainable. Yes, they're not necessarily making a lot of money, but making a loss, but they continue to push through despite all the challenges that they continuously face in their community. And so for me, they're also my inspiration, because again, they're the reality. They sit at the coalface of the reality of this country, of the fact that the majority of the people are poor and that they're creating solutions for their community. They're not waiting for the Department of Basic Education or Social Development to give them money and to give them a grant, but they've done it with their own resources. And so they're also my heroes. And so I guess that's where the message is for me, and from me to you, is that, you know, I really love what Thembiso said, is that Thembiso said in terms of mindset first, right? If you believe in yourself and you believe in your capabilities, right? And then two, you are creating a solution, not from your perspective, but from your customer's perspective, from your consumer perspective, right? You really have the arsenal to create something impactful and to really be able to make a difference in your business and in your community's lives. So it starts with you. It starts with your self-esteem, and it starts with how you believe in yourself. So believe in yourself. And then two is that if there are no doors, create one. Really, that's it. And that's my motto, is that if there's no door, or if the door's shut and it's not letting me through, trust me, I find a way to create one for myself or to break down that door. And so have that mindset.
I would like to also encourage everyone to still send in the questions at online at 22onsloane.co. We'll write down the email on the chat box. If you have any questions, and we will, under our panelists' permission, we will send through the email addresses. But please do send in those questions, because a Startup Huddle is indeed a place where you need to learn and engage. So it is very important to say our aim is for you to go out here with the knowledge that you need, and so please do. In closing, I can say that these three panelists have really achieved a lot, and they have gone against the narrative of a woman is lazy, a woman is only needed in the kitchen, a woman is only needed in an administrative field. They went beyond the norm. So I would like to thank every one of you who participated, and I would like to thank our panelists for sharing this knowledge. And I myself have taken a lot from this. I've learned, and I'm going to utilize this knowledge going forward. And Muzi, do you have any closing remarks?
From my side, I would also like to say thank you for everyone for joining us today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's session as much as I did. And just to stress again, if you guys still have more questions, you can send them at online at 22onsloane.co. Online at 22onsloane.co. All right, that's it for me, guys. Hope you guys have a great weekend and be safe. Don't forget, Corona still exists, so be safe. Anything from you, Nokwazi?
No, that's all. Actually, they can check out my website at matoyana.co.za. We create content for entrepreneurs. So hopefully you can also find some of the answers that you had to your questions on our blogs.
Cool, guys. You guys can visit our website. It's www.22onsloane.co, www.22onsloane.co. And much appreciate, guys, from my side, from the guys at 22 on Sloane. Thank you guys for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and I enjoyed myself. Bye.
Bye.